Covering. I'm Stephen Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live, and this video here and behind you here, where it speaks about Prime Minister Netanyahu to resign Monday, has stirred up a whirlwind of people out there. And of course, some of them actually saying, well, it's fake news and we won't subscribe to Israeli News Live if it doesn't happen on Monday. Let me make a couple of things clear real quick, because I really want to share with you guys exactly why we published this story here, and to give you a little bit better understanding about the source. As we're saying even in the title here, it would be a disaster for Prime Minister Netanyahu to resign at this time. I know there is a whirlwind of allegations against the Prime Minister, from bribery to accepting expensive champagne and cigars, his wife, and the possibility of an indictment. And quite frankly, for me to hear that he would be resigning on Monday was yet a shock as well. The information, though, was more than a day old when this information came out. And of course, the same official also said that there would be a major escalation of tensions or conflict inside of Syria as well. We saw this begin to happen even with Israel before we made this report. So it seemed to give a little bit more credibility to the source. But I want to tell you a little bit more about the source without divulging the name of the source themselves. This source is very close to the White House, specifically to President Trump, a personal friend of President Trump's, as well a good friend of Prime Minister Netanyahu. Very strong supporter of Israel, strong supporter of Prime Minister Netanyahu. So I would not have brought this out just from someone that lives in Israel, and I have many friends inside of Israel that probably could not even believe the story either, that I wouldn't just say it. This is a person that is in the know, a person that is close to both sides, that is saying that the Prime Minister will resign Monday. I also keep in mind that, yes, war could change everything. State of emergency could also allow the Prime Minister to change his mind and not resign on Monday. I would like to know myself exactly how he knew all about this to begin with. But nonetheless, that was shared with us, and because we've seen that escalation already beginning in Syria with what happened with the downing of the Israeli F-16, and as well as Israel striking 12 Iranian targets in there, and the first time the conflict between Iran and Israel ever really began to give more credence to this source here. This is not a prophecy. I did not prophesy this. I'm only citing this source here, and I was given specific times. And again, as I said, a very close friend to President Trump as well, and in the know on both sides of the fence of what's going on. Strong supporter of Israel and a strong supporter of Prime Minister Netanyahu, a friend of Prime Minister Netanyahu. So if it does not happen, it does not make us a fake news. We reported exactly what we saw. I want to share with you, though, some other things as well. We know that the Haaretz says here Netanyahu will not need to step down if he is indicted, Israeli Justice Minister says. And we know that Prime Minister Netanyahu has stated publicly that he would not step down. He also stated publicly just the other day on the Los Angeles Times was reporting that he would be indicted soon. So no doubt he knows that that is coming. But at the same time, we know that Israel warns Iran after launching major raids in Syria. This could change everything. This could actually give the Prime Minister a justification not to resign or not to step down with the pressure of all these allegations. And in fact, when the F-16 was down by the Syrian military, Israel responded, striking a dozen Iranian targets inside of the country. And I thought that was kind of odd. Why strike Iranian targets if indeed it was Syria that downed the Israeli plane, which we know it was done by the S-200 system that Israel has. We also know there is a great upheaval as well over the State Department of the United States saying that the Syrian government is using sarin and chlorine gas against its civilians, and they are really ready to try to rein in both Russia and Bashar al-Assad for those chemical attacks. So there is a lot of reason for escalation definitely to be on the horizon. And after the Prime Minister now instructed his Air Force to strike 12 Iranian targets inside of Syria, it really, not officially now, but it puts Israel in a serious, very close to a state of emergency. Now that would give the Prime Minister the ability to stay in office. But then we get people out there making videos already against us saying that we're fake news. And one of the things that they actually cite, and it's a man sitting in Galilee, from what I understand, supposed to be a believer in Yeshua. And I really appreciate that he's a believer in Yeshua. I'm not here to condemn the man. I would not call him out by name or anything. But he said that we're also fake news because we said that, well, Israel gave up land to the Vatican. Well, let me just share with you right here, this video here, and I want to put it in the comments so you can see it. Shimon Peres gave 60% of Jerusalem to the Vatican at the 1993 Oslo Accords. Well, maybe not necessarily the Oslo Accords, because as the late Joel Boehnerman stated, it was what was going on at the Vatican while the Oslo Accords were going on. But this is an interview by Barry Chamish with his guest on the Barry Chamish radio show on November the 10th, 2010. Anybody that knows Barry Chamish knows that Barry Chamish was Jewish. He was an Israeli. He fought in the Lebanon War. He was part of the Israeli army. He was also an investigative journalist. Became very well known for his book, Who Murdered Yitzhak Rabin. And Barry was a good friend of ours. Also had been on Israeli News Live multiple times as well. And he is the one that uncovered, along with Joel Boehnerman, the fact that that much land was given over to the Vatican. But the one that's condemning me, saying that I'm fake news, talks about that story as well and says that was all fake news, that it never happened. Just like when we had Saman Tov on Israeli News Live, an Israeli-born Jewish man, believer in the Messiah Yeshua, that says a two-state solution was signed by Ariel Sharon in his administration, and the infrastructure began. We've shared many of these things with you guys. And then, of course, just the other day, we broke this story here. A U.S. strike kills 100 Syrian military and Russian contractors. Well, I was called fake news, and how many people said, I'm unsubscribing to you? Because another man was out there making a video that what I was saying was not true. It was all fake news. Only to come out the very next day, CBS, BBC, RT, and in fact BBC and CBS both quoted Pentagon sources saying there were Russian mercenaries among the dead, and of course they cited on BBC 100 were killed. And they were stating that from American sources at the Pentagon. Just because sometimes we break something before someone else doesn't make us fake news. And yes, we may make a mistake here and there. We will try to correct that. But in the case that I reported on Prime Minister Netanyahu resigning on Monday, I only cited it because the source is not against Prime Minister Netanyahu, a friend of his, a friend of President Trump, very high-ranking, former high-ranking official in the U.S. government. And so I think that the source is very credible. Could it change? Yes, it could. And do I want to see him resign? Absolutely not. I know that Prime Minister Netanyahu has done a lot of mistakes in his presidency or his prime ministership that he's been in there. There's been allegations when he was prime minister before. I know that Obama wanted to get him out of office. And as I stated to you recently, the video that came out in 2012 that was slamming him, we got to see the side of Prime Minister Netanyahu that did not just want to divide up the land. I have a great respect for the Prime Minister for not wanting to divide up Israel. And I do not want to see him resign. Let there be an election. Let there be a referendum. Let there be a smooth transition. Even if he were to be indicted, do it in a smooth way that does not jeopardize the security of Israel. But we wanted to bring this out and to make it more clear, our stand on this. If he resigns on Monday, it will not make me feel good. even if we are correct, because it's not, I can't say it's Stephen Ben-Nun is correct, it's only that our source was accurate. Even while we were recording this broadcast here of Israeli News Live, we had this article coming out on Press TV. Netanyahu stirring regional war to deflect attention from corruption probe, an Israeli lawmaker. This lawmaker here, I believe, is from the Arabic side of the Knesset there. It says an Israeli lawmaker says Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is seeking to instigate a regional war to deflect attention from the ongoing investigation into suspicious corrupt practices. Ada Terma Silman from the joint list, which comprises Arab representatives at the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, made the remarks after Israel seriously escalated its intervention in the Syrian war on Saturday. Netanyahu and his regime are submerged up to their necks in corruption affairs on the eve of the publication of recommendations, said the lawmaker. Netanyahu is willing to instigate a regional war in which the peoples of the region will pay a heavy price just for his political survival, she added. And again, of course, that is a person that is staunchly against Prime Minister Netanyahu, and no doubt also for the dividing of the land of Israel. But the point is clear, and of course, there could be some truth to that. But nonetheless, again, with these rising tensions in the region, it would not be a good time for the Prime Minister to resign at this time. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live. Shalom.